Part B, Directions. In this part of the test, you will hear longer conversations. After each conversation, you will hear several questions. The conversations and questions will not be repeated. After you hear a question, read the 4 possible answers in your test book and choose the best answer. Then, on your answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Go on to the next page. Now, we will begin Part B with the first conversation. Questions 31 through 34. Listen to part of a discussion between 2 students who are in the same History of Architecture class.
So what did you think about that ancient Egyptian temple the professor talked about in class today?
The temple at Karnak?
Uh-huh.
Oh, pretty amazing. So grand and magnificent with all those cleverly thought-out features.
Well, sure. After all, the temple was built to honor the ruler, and those ancient Egyptian rulers were viewed as gods after their deaths.
Oh, I know. But like that whole avenue of rams leading up to the temple, I mean, that roadway with all of those statues of sacrificial animals along both sides, all that seems perfectly designed for the grand religious processions they often had there. And that huge stone over the entrance to the temple, the way it was cut away.
Yeah, that was clever. How they just cut away part of that stone so the priests in those big processions could pass through the entrance underneath, even with all the tall banners they'd be carrying in and out of the temple.
Right. And how about the inside of the temple, in that great hall?
You mean the columns?
Yeah.
Those columns really were amazing. I mean, like how many were there? Over 100? And each one with images of gods and kings cut into its surface to tell stories of their great deeds.
Well, they were all pretty awesome, but I particularly meant the columns down the center aisle of the hall. The ones that were so much taller than all the others, so that they raised the center roof a lot higher than the roofs on either side.
Oh, yeah, those. What a brilliant solution for letting natural light down into the middle of the Great Hall. Man, some of those architects back then must have been really creative.
Number 31. What aspect of the temple at Karnak do the speakers mainly discuss? Number 32. According to the discussion, what was the avenue of rams often used for? Number 33. Why is part of the stone over the entrance to the temple missing? Number 34. According to the conversation, what aspect of the Great Hall was improved by raising part of its roof? Questions 35 through 38. Listen to part of a conversation between 2 students.
Hey, Debbie, want to see a movie?
Tonight? Where, downtown?
No, right over there in the Student Center, starting in just a couple minutes. Actually, it's a collection called Classic Shorts. You know what a short is, right?
Not really.
Well, obviously, it's not very long. We learned in our film studies course that the first movies ever made were shorts, and Professor Jones said they'd run from as little as 1 minute to up to 10 minutes at the most.
So they were silent?
Sure, at first.
Wouldn't that be kind of boring, without talking or anything?
No, I mean, the collection they're showing tonight also includes a few later shorts with music and creative sound effects. But you'd like those early classics too. It takes a pretty good filmmaker to tell the story just through images.
Hadn't thought of that.
Sure. And you know, shorts are still made today, though usually with at least some dialogue. Most new directors actually get their start doing shorts.
Wouldn't it be easier for them to start with a regular film? You know, the usual length?
I don't know. Maybe the expense, whatever the costs are, actors, production, crew. If the film's 10 times as long, it'll cost 10 times as much to make, right?
Hey, speaking of time, we better head over there now if we don't want to be late.
Number 35. What are the speakers mainly discussing? Number 36. What characteristic of the short films does the woman imply she might not like? Number 37. According to the man, why would a new director probably choose to make short films today? Number 38. What will the man and woman probably do next? This is the end of Part B. Go on to the next page. Now, read along as the directions for Part C are being read. Directions. In this part of the test, you will hear several short talks. After each talk, you will hear some questions. The talks and the questions will not be repeated. After you hear a question, read the 4 possible answers in your test book and choose the best answer. Then, on your answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Here is an example. On the recording, you hear, "Listen to a professor talk to his class about a television program."
I'd like to tell you about an interesting TV program that'll be shown this coming Thursday. It'll be on from 9 to 10 p.m. on Channel 4. It's part of a series called Mysteries of Human Biology. The subject of the program is the human brain, how it functions and how it can malfunction. Topics that will be covered are dreams, memory, and depression. These topics are illustrated with outstanding computer animation that makes the explanations easy to follow. Make an effort to see this show. Since we've been studying the nervous system in class, I know you'll find it very helpful.
Now listen to a sample question. What is the main purpose of the program? In your test book you read, A. To demonstrate the latest use of computer graphics. B. To discuss the possibility of an economic depression. C. To explain the workings of the brain. D. To dramatize a famous mystery story. The best answer to the question, what is the main purpose of the program, is C. To explain the workings of the brain. Therefore, the correct choice is C. Now listen to another sample question. Why does the professor recommend watching the program? In your test book you read, A. It is required of all science majors. B. It will feature the professor's research. C. It can help viewers improve their memory skills. D. It will help with coursework. The best answer to the question, why does the professor recommend watching the program, is D. It will help with coursework. Therefore, the correct choice is D. Go on to the next page. Now, we will begin Part C with the first talk. Questions 39 through 42. Listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Okay, most mammals give birth to live young. They don't lay eggs. But there are a tiny handful of mammal species that do lay eggs. They're called monotremes. Based on the fossil record, biologists believe monotremes to be the oldest surviving mammals on Earth. Their ancestors were actually alive at the same time as the dinosaurs, but they didn't become extinct when the dinosaurs did. Today, the few surviving species of monotremes all live in the vicinity of Australia. Millions of years ago, Australia and its neighboring islands broke away from a larger landmass, and because they were then isolated from the rest of the world, the plant and animal life there evolved into forms we don't find anywhere else. So let's look at one species of monotreme, the short-beaked echidna. That's echidna. Short-beaked echidnas are little animals with coarse hair and spines. They look something like a small porcupine. Around the beginning of each mating season, echidnas, both males and females, develop a temporary pouch, a pocket. They have folds of skin on their bellies, and by contracting certain abdominal muscles, they bring these folds of skin together to form a pouch. In each mating season, a female will lay a single egg, and when she lays an egg, she curls her body in such a way that the egg is transferred directly into the pouch. Why the male echidnas develop these pouches is a mystery, as they have absolutely no use for them that we know of.
Number 39. What is the lecture mainly about? Number 40. According to the professor, what does the fossil record indicate about monotremes? Number 41. What does the professor say about the skin on an echidna's abdomen? Number 42. What point does the professor make about the pouches of echidna males? Questions 43 through 47. Listen to part of a lecture in a child development class.
We've been discussing psychologist Jean Piaget. He proposed that children go through stages in cognitive development as they get older. Well, I tried an experiment with my 3-year-old daughter to explore her stage of development. I took a short, wide drinking glass filled with water. Then, I poured the water into a tall, narrow glass. Although she carefully watched me do this, she said the tall, narrow glass held more water than the short, wide one. Why? Well, let's return to our discussion about Piaget. He argued that children between the ages of 2 and 7 don't understand the law of conservation. The law of conservation says that the properties of a substance, such as its volume and mass, stay the same even if you change its shape or arrangement. So my daughter didn't understand that the volume of water stays the same no matter what the size of the container is. One conclusion Piaget reached from this experiment is that children at this age are only able to think concretely. They have organized logical thinking, but only when it applies to concrete physical objects. They aren't able to think abstractly until a later development stage, between the ages of 11 and 16. Although Piaget's theories are well known, there's been criticism of his methodology. Children were often asked the same question twice, leading them to believe they answered incorrectly and changed their answers. But when the methodology was changed, children demonstrated an understanding of the law of conservation at an earlier age.
Number 43. What is the lecture mainly about? Number 44. What did the professor's daughter say about the 2 different glass containers? Number 45. What did the experiment with the professor's daughter demonstrate about young children? Number 46. According to the professor, what conclusion did Piaget come to based on the experiment with water? Number 47. What criticism of Piaget's experiment does the professor mention? Questions 48 through 50. Listen to a geologist giving a lecture to an engineering class.
Your professor has asked me to talk to you today about a topic that should be of real concern to civil engineers, the erosion of United States beaches. Let me start with some statistics. Did you know that 90% of the coast in this country is eroding? On the Gulf of Mexico, for instance, erosion averages 4 to 5 feet per year. Over the past 20 years, there has been an increase in building along the coast, even though geologists and environmentalists have been warning communities about problems like erosion. One way communities have tried to protect their buildings and roads has been to build seawalls. However, geologists have found that such stabilizing structures actually speed up the destruction of beaches. These beaches with seawalls, called stabilized beaches, are much narrower than beaches without them. You may wonder how seawalls speed up beach loss. The explanation is simple. If the slope of a beach is gentle, the water's energy is lessened as it washes up along the shore. It is reduced even more as it returns to the sea, so it doesn't carry back much sand. On the other hand, when the water hits the nearly vertical face of a seawall, it goes straight back to the sea with the full force of its energy, and it carries back a great deal of sand. Because of the real risk of losing beaches, many geologists support a ban on all types of stabilizing construction on the shoreline.
Number 48. What is the speaker mainly discussing? Number 49. According to the speaker, what problem is caused by building seawalls? Number 50. How does a gently sloping beach help prevent erosion? This is the end of Section 1, Listening Comprehension. Stop work on Section 1. This is a reminder. At the end of the test, the supervisor will collect all of the test books. You may not leave until all of the test books have been collected. End of recording.